In the previous video, we learned about APIs and how they decouple the front end and the back end. Now you remember the API is just a URL that can be called by the front end. The server's responsibility is to maintain that the information is available via that URL. Now the thing is, these APIs can be called very randomly and they end up becoming very random. And when APIs came out, there was no standard that existed of how APIs need to behave and how they can be structured. So what ended up happening was APIs started becoming quite random, and one company's API looked very different from another company's API. And this created a complete chaos in the industry. And this meant that you really couldn't use other people's softwares easily, and it took a lot of time to understand how to use another person's software. And this is why an industry standard or a rule set was created. This is more like an architectural style that was required to define how multiple systems, independent systems, can interact with each other. So REST is the first API category we're looking at. And it's a common misconception to think that it's actually a protocol. It's not actually a protocol, it's just an architectural style. And before REST, there were SOAP APIs. They used to use XML, but they were tightly coupled. And the other option was RPC. Now we'll learn about gRPC soon, but for now you just need to know that RPC is something that's very tightly coupled between the front end and the back end. So with SOAP APIs and RPC, a lot of knowledge was required about how the back end functioned. And the front end developer had to catch up or keep up with how the backend used to function to be able to call these backend functions. That's basically how RPC used to work, because RPC is remote procedure call. That means the front end developer is basically calling functions at the backend side. That means he had to know how those functions operated. But what if you could create a layer between them that decoupled both of them? And that was APIs, but then APIs, like I mentioned, started becoming random, and that's why you needed an architectural style to help create a structure of how APIs would behave. Now, if you don't follow an API structure like REST, it becomes hard to scale, hard to change, right? So we wanted software to scale better. So this was imperative to decouple the programming language of the front end and the back end. What that meant is you could have something called as client and server decoupling in terms of the programming language. So I'll talk about that in a minute, but let's first come back to the basics. So you could take advantage of HTTP methods, HTTP request, response, and header. So you remember when we learned about HTTP, we learned about the methods, we learned about the fact that you have to send a request and a response, and you have headers to actually facilitate communication between front and back end. So now the question is, how do we actually make use of all of that to better structure our APIs? So one thing that REST APIs help us to do is CRUD, which is create, read, update, and delete. So imagine you have a backend server, you have a front-end server, and you have the user. The user calls the front-end server calls the backend server actually calls the database. Now, sometimes the user just wants to read some information, and that's perfectly all right. But in many cases, he also wants to add information, and this information actually gets added to the database. And this is why if we were to use the HTTP methods along with our API, for example, we have the post method, right? This will help us create something at the database side. By just calling the URL with the post method, you can indicate to the server that, hey, this is some new information I want to add to the database. And we already saw how the user is going to actually read information from the backend. That's with the help of the get method. Now, if the user wants to update some information in the database, right? And the database is actually in a different location. The user does not know how the database actually functions. All the user does is actually interact with the front end. The front end figures out how to interact with the backend via the API, and the backend figures out what to do based on the request with the database. The user wants to update his information in the database. The user actually makes a request to the front end. The front end then actually uses put or patch methods, both of which we've already seen. And the front end is basically using it on the URL, which tells the backend server that, okay, this information needs to be added to the database. And the backend server just adds that information to the database. Similarly, if the information wants to delete his information from the database, he just informs the front end via, let's say, a UI form, and the front end actually uses the delete method while calling the API URL. The backend comes to know that, okay, this information needs to be deleted with this particular ID. And then the backend server just goes ahead and deletes that information from the database. Now, there are 6 principles that guide REST API development. Okay, so let's look at these 6 different principles that actually help facilitate the REST API development. So I quickly want to share something very important with you. If you've used Codex CLI or Claude Code recently, you know that humans won't be writing a lot of code in the near future. So what will humans be doing? And the answer is they will be architecting systems and understanding how software scales from a 10,000 feet perspective. So all the planning and architecting will be the human's job, and AI will be mostly responsible for the implementation. And you'll begin to see this in the next 3 years. There's no course on the market right now that prepares you for this. And this is why I've built a 3-month intensive advanced system design cohort. It's meant for people who have some industry experience and who want to move on to leadership positions like directors, VP engineering, or CTO positions. If you think you're the right fit, there's a form in the description and in the comments of this video. We'll check to see if you're a good fit, and then we'll set up a call with you. Now let's get back to the video. But before that, I just want to help you visualize the URL, which we've already seen, and the HTTP methods and how they'll be applied. So here we're using the get method on this particular URL link, which is the API URL. And on this, we're trying to get some information. But if you wanted to create new information, you would use the post method. If you wanted to update information, you'd use put and patch. If you wanted to delete some information, you would use, instead of get, the delete method. You're basically combining HTTP methods on the API, and this is how you get the REST API, which enable you to perform CRUD operations, or create, read, update, delete. And when you actually start building software, and you see a lot of videos on YouTube, they are actually all about CRUD operations. That's why most of the basic software tutorials are around CRUD operations. Now let's look at the 6 different principles that guide REST API development. Like I mentioned, REST is actually an architectural style that help us structure APIs so that random APIs don't exist. And then there's an industry guideline on how companies and systems can actually interact with each other using API calling. The first is uniform interface. Doesn't matter if it's a phone or a laptop that's calling the backend server, they will always call the same API. So it's a uniform interface. The API will look same for the phone and for the laptop. It'll look very similar. Now, the industry has actually moved beyond this, and there are different API versions, or sometimes different APIs altogether for the mobile app and the laptop. And sometimes different types of APIs are also exposed to the phone, like GraphQL. But we'll learn about that later. For now, you need to know that for REST API, you need to have a uniform interface. The second thing you have is complete decoupling. Now, you could have React.js, which is a JavaScript-based framework for the front end, or you could have something completely different like Golang, Elixir, Rust, or even Haskell for that matter. And the front end doesn't really have to care what technology the backend is built in. In earlier times, you had to build both the front end and backend functionality in the same technology. They were tightly coupled, but now you have complete programming independence between the front end and the backend. And this statement actually means multiple things. The first thing, it means that the front end doesn't need to know how the functions are set up in the backend side. The second thing is the front end and backend technologies can be completely different. And the third thing it means is that the front end and backend technologies can actually be running on different servers altogether. So complete decoupling means 3 different things. The third thing that REST APIs enable us to do is cacheability. So you can cache the information that you get from the backend server at the front end side, so that you don't have to always call the backend server. You can retrieve some information from the cache. And the backend always calls the database for a lot of information that the front end requests. So instead of making those fetch requests from the database, you can just retrieve the information from the cache if you had especially retrieved it very recently. So you can just keep it in the cache and send the information back to the user from the cache instead of calling the database. And this reduces network congestion, reduces the number of requests required, and speeds up the entire system. The fourth guiding principle is layered architecture. What this means is that the backend actually exists after multiple layers. So there could be an API proxy server, there could be a rate limiter, it could be a load balancer. That means the front end is not directly in touch with the backend server, and that's completely all right. And the REST APIs need to be structured in such a way the backend doesn't have to worry about where the request is coming from. It could be coming from the API proxy, after coming from the rate limiter, after coming from the load balancer, and so on. But the request always looks the same. So the REST APIs need to be built in such a way that even with the layered architecture, whatever the user needs is actually being sent back from the server without needing a special configuration for each of these layers in the architecture. Now, it's possible that you don't know about load balancers, rate limiters, and proxy servers. And these are some of the topics we'll be learning about when we go further in this series. But what you really need to understand is that you can add all of these different layers in our architecture just because of the fact we're using REST APIs. And just adding these extra layers actually enhance the availability, security, and scalability of our architecture immensely. And we'll be learning about all of these technologies soon, like I mentioned. So the fifth principle here is that the client can actually request for information from the server. And in most of the cases, the information will be text-related information. But in some cases, it can also be code-related information. But what's important to remember here is that it can get back the code it wants, but the code cannot run automatically. So code will only run on demand. So this actually protects the client, because there could be someone in the middle sending malicious scripts to the front end and then executing the code on behalf of the user without the user knowing. So that's why REST APIs are structured to run the code only on demand. The sixth and really important point is statelessness. So earlier, when we used to have PHP and Ruby on Rails, if you were around in those days, probably you would remember that we used to store the state of every user interaction on the server side. But now we can just have it on the client side, or maybe not even the client side, but we definitely don't have it on the server side at all. So the server is completely stateless. It does not remember what the previous user did. And each request is not dependent on the previous request. So we're not maintaining like a cascading effect or a cause and effect relation between the requests. We're treating each of the requests coming from the clients separately as a new independent individual request. So we don't maintain details of the sessions for the user at the server side, and each API call is treated separately. So this is called as statelessness. We'll learn more about it in our series. What this enables us to do is scale our system immensely. So this is actually one of the big reasons why we had to go with something like Node.js over PHP and Ruby on Rails, because you get statelessness and you're able to scale your systems much more effectively. So now that we know about APIs and REST APIs, we'll understand some best practices in the next video on how to structure our APIs.